Well, if you've been watching this channel and probably many other channels as well, it's going to come as no shock to hear about Disney price hikes and how those are affecting customers and the potential long-term outlook for the parks, of course, as these price hikes continue, as competition ramps up for Disney. But Cinema Blend has an interesting article here that brings up a pretty interesting point I thought was worth going into, as they're talking about not just investors, like we learned last week, are starting to worry about the parks, downgrading the Disney stock based off of it, and the increasing demand from Epic Universe and Universal Studios there. But they also have a little here about an analyst looking at this as well and wondering about some of the long-term potential ramifications of this. So I figured this was a good article to walk through, give some thoughts on, and go from there. So hi, I'm Jared with Capture the Magic, and again, this is from Cinema Blend. They say prices have gotten a little bit out of control. Analyst admits Disney World may finally be getting too expensive. They say Wall Street just figured out what Disney parks fans have known for years. Well, typically investors are kind of the last of the party many times because they're not plugged into this stuff. Most of these guys aren't going to theme parks, aren't in the realm. They just see revenues and profits. And whenever that starts taking a dip is when they basically notice. So they're not looking at things in terms of how people that are in the know would. They're just looking at it from a strictly financial standpoint. So anyone who's been to Walt Disney World or Disneyland over the past few years can testify that amenities at Disney parks are quite expensive. While there's no argument that there's nothing quite like a trip to the most magical place on earth, there's always something new at Disney World, sometimes, to make a return trip worthwhile. Prices have slowly and sometimes not so slowly increased across the board. That's led to the sort of vacation that is clearly out of the reach of many customers. Customers, same thing. And now it looks like even Wall Street may be coming to that realization. The price increases have certainly helped the House of Mouse's bottom line when it comes to stockholders. Have they, though? I mean, if you were a Disney stockholder the past 5 years, you are not getting an ROI on your investment. I mean, I think it peaked around COVID around $160 $164, and is still under the $100 mark now. So I don't think... I think Disney has made money, again, from Genie Plus and in the Lightning Lane system. Since they introduced them, they've made almost $1 billion from them. So Disney's made money from this, but I don't think that's gone down to stockholders, though. The Disney Experiences division, which includes the theme parks and cruise lines, is often the primary profit center for the entire company. 70% of it, I think it was last year, was 70% of the entire revenue and profit came from the parks. And the endless drive to make more money this quarter than last quarter has forced Disney to make massive layoffs while also increasing prices. However, during the company's last quarterly earnings call, it warned that it expected a softening of attendance, or in a corporate speak of moderation of consumer demand, coming in the short term. Speaking to Yahoo Finance, Morningstar analyst Matthew Dolgan wondered if the price increases may have gone too far, saying, "My one area of concern," I think there's more than one area of concern, but "my one area of concern is whether it's a longer term issue as prices have gotten a little bit out of control versus a shorter term economically tied type of issue. I don't know how much of this is a natural cycling thing versus whether they have pushed the envelope a little too far on pricing, and that's the biggest thing that concerns me rather than their investment in the business." Valid points. The comments echo sentiments made last year by Disney CEO Bob Iger, who admitted Disney Parks price hikes had been too aggressive, having said that "we certainly haven't seen them stop." No, and they've increased. Now, I will give Iger credit. They actually did remove the parking fee for the Disney resorts, which I'm in still many ways I'm utterly shocked by. But Iger at the same time will say a lot of these things in terms of, oh yeah, we did this, and this, but it's not. I haven't seen a price decrease across property. I've only seen them continue to go up, and they've even said going into 2025, the ticket prices are going to go up yet again. So it seems while he admits their price hikes and being too aggressive, they aren't stopping it. The price hikes increase revenue, which Wall Street loves, but at some point, if they result in reduced attendance, the revenue ends up going down. And that's something Wall Street doesn't love. Even if we look at this from a purely financial perspective rather than a customer satisfaction one, there's a point in which increased prices are bad news. Disney is currently planning a $60 billion investment in its theme parks and cruise lines, which will certainly increase costs over the next decade or so. While that may help attendance down the road, if attendance drops between now and then, it's going to be a rough period for Disney parks and therefore the corporation as a whole. The problem, however, is that the prices have really, quote, pushed the envelope, as Dolgan says. That could mean a longer-term issue. There's an argument that the Mouse House is intentionally pricing people out as a way to reduce attendance while still keeping revenue high. That works to a point, but you can easily increase prices too much and go past the equilibrium point, and you likely won't know you've gone too far for some time. It's true. And I've said this for a while, like if you start seeing one quarter down, another quarter down, this doesn't all happen at once. It's not like one day you wake up and everything, people just stop going. It's this gradual downtrend. And I wonder, and part of me thinks that this is kind of where we're at with Disney, is you're starting to see this gradual downtrend of people that, they plan their trips, they want to go on them, they have the nostalgia, they go on the trip, it's really expensive, they didn't really have as much fun as they thought they were going to, and when it comes to the next vacation, how many of those people are willing or wanting to go back to Disney again, especially with increased competition and with them raising prices? So if you didn't have the best trip last time, or if you're just like, it was really expensive, I don't know if it was worth it, and they've raised prices even more when you look at going on your next trip, how many of those people are willing to spend the money on something that even the last time when it was cheaper didn't enjoy it as much? Because it's not only just the price issue, but like they said, it's also the customer satisfaction and how you feel about your vacation, which I think Disney used to do really well, which they did the little things. They used to make you feel special and things were magical, and they did little things. They, the value that was, again, not that Disney was ever cheap, but you did feel like you got more value out of it with the Fast Passes, Magical Express, with so many of the different things, but now have been taken away and then charged on top of increased ticket prices. I think that's a place where a lot of people have been pushing back, and as time goes on, I think they'll push back more. Guests who have already planned Disney World vacations will still go on them, but if they're deciding Disney World is too expensive now, and that's going to result in the softening of attendance not being a major blip on the radar, but a long-term problem. The problem is that a price increase today that pushes things too far won't actually result in reduced attendance for months or even years down the road. Exactly. By then, it will take months or years or more to undo the damage. If people think Disney World is a good value and they have a good time on their trip, they'll tell their friends to go. If they come back and all they can talk about is how much they spent, the word of mouth may keep people away. With that, once people have decided not to go, getting them to change their mind is a difficult, lengthy, and likely expensive process. They bring up a really good point, and it's not just a financial thing, which, now the analysts and some of the investors are starting to talk about, because that's where they really care about is the money. And this is unfortunately the majority of things that Disney will hear about, is because they care about that stock price and the investor side of things, in my opinion, more than they do necessarily, purely the guest experience. Obviously, they're looking to make more money, and if they're going to show, they even said, and they're looking, forecasting to this fiscal end of year, they were looking at mid-single digits, downtrend in revenue and profits. I can't remember which one or both, but either way, they're not looking the best. And they even said themselves going into 2025. And you obviously have Epic Universe, you have Universal Studios stepping up with much more competition for Disney. And, Disney for a long time operated as if, and for a long time you make an argument they kind of were, they really didn't have any competition. They could kind of do what they wanted to do. They offered a very unique experience that, if you wanted to do it, it was going to cost you a certain amount of money to do it. And there was no other place you could get anything like it. Well, now other, regional theme parks have popped up. Obviously, Universal Studios has stepped their game up, especially since Comcast bought them about 10 years ago. And this is before even Epic Universe opened. So you have increased competition. You have sentiment in just terms of the brand and how people feel about Disney is not the same as it was a decade ago, on top of the price hikes. And I agree with this in terms of, if you're past that envelope, you're on this downtrend, what does Disney do to fix it? And just bringing in new stuff into their parks, and in my opinion, a lot of this stuff is things that I don't really know how big of a draw Cars is going to be in Magic Kingdom, how big of a draw some of the stuff they announced. Like, I'm not saying it won't be successful. I just have questions about it. I think the Villains land is probably the most potential in terms of being a big hit, in my opinion. Obviously, adding these new lands, they're going to increase cost even more, which just feeds more into the sentiment that people have about the brand. And really, from a marketing standpoint, which is, I come from the digital marketing background, essentially, it's way more difficult to gain a new customer than it is to sell to an existing customer. So Disney had a large group of people that loved their brand, would go all the time. And as time has gone on, they've been turned off by many different things. I mean, you can see it on this channel in the comments, and we've seen it from our podcast and people that talk about it all the time, where, they went for 10, 20 years and whatever it was, it didn't make any more sense. The value wasn't there. Maybe it was DAS. Maybe it was the price hikes, whatever it was. It's not the single thing for everybody, but a lot of people have been turned off by Disney. And if Disney then recognizes down the road, oh, we pushed this too far, this isn't working out how we wanted, I think they're going to have a harder time getting, if they can even get those people back. But not only are you losing the audience that you had, but how many new people are you bringing in? How many new, because again, the people that will be your biggest message spreaders and will I guess in better terms spread the gospel for you would be people that are your super fans. And if those people have been falling off and are no longer going and are no longer a super fan, and how many new people are you getting to come to the Disney parks compared to years ago? So you have a shrinking amount of people coming, which is we've seen. I mean, they haven't recovered their attendance that they lost ever since 2020. 2019 was, I forget the number, but it was very high. They haven't, recovered that number yet, but they've made more money because they've been charging for more things. I just don't think that's a sustainable practice. I think it's a very short-sighted thing that they've done. They decided to harvest profits, essentially make money in the short term, but I feel like a lot of this is sacrificing it for the long term. In a time when they have increased competition, and especially just down the road, you got Epic Universe opening, and I myself and many people wonder exactly how is Disney even going to remotely combat with this whenever the things that they announce that they're going to bring into the parks as being a potential thing to bring people in and compete with Epic Universe are not going to be ready for 5+ years. I just think that's the timeline you're looking at there. Really, the only thing Disney can offer is discounts to really try and drive people, to come back to the parks or at least come in for a day or two at a park here and there. So I think Disney's in a pretty tricky situation right now. I guess a lot of it depends on, do they recognize that if they have pushed it too far, if a lot of people come to this assumption, do they think that they have? Because Disney is pretty reactionary, and sometimes they're very late to the party. And, if they're not there yet, they may find out too late that they are, pushed it too far. And then again, like the article said, once you recognize that, it may take you much longer than you anticipate to get these people back. And I feel like there would have to be drastic changes to the way the parks operate and some of the offerings that they do for, a lot of people to be like, you know what, let's go back. I have a good feeling about it. I feel like they're offering what they used to, the values there, things like that. But the thing is, a lot of people that they lost as customers will never come back. And like the article said, on many levels, they have been, I think, pricing people out on purpose, but now they may be in a position to where in the long term, that was not a good strategy, and they're left sort of scrambling, trying to figure out how to get these people back. And again, they kind of tend to always have operated as if they're the only game in town, which, again, you can make the argument that they have, but they're probably looking over at Universal Studios and Epic Universe kind of nervously, wondering how that's going to go. So I think investors and analysts are starting to come to this realization that there's some warning signs here, and especially with that stock price, if the parks really start taking a dip, again, they make the most money for the entire company. That stock price is going to take a dip as well. And as I've said many times, you got Nelson Peltz out there. If he's watching this and that stock continues to go down, maybe he waits until they name a new CEO, because Bob Iger does have more, I guess you could say, influence to kind of fight off a potential I guess you would call it an activist investor trying to get on the board. But let's say the new CEO comes in, they're probably not going to have those connections or that, the way in which the media sort of portrays them. He could come back with a new leadership and really push his way in there and try and make some changes there. The third time could be the charm in which he gets on, especially if Disney is struggling, in the parks especially, but going into 2025, 2026 and beyond. Either way, I thought it was an interesting article. And again, it's another analyst, more investors noting this. And I think we're probably going to start seeing more of this, especially if that fourth quarter fiscal report does not look great for Disney. I think you're going to see a lot of investors sort of raising the alarm on this, that there's trouble here. And again, how Disney fixes it is there's no quick fix for this. It's something that would have to be a well thought out strategy to try and get people to come back to the parks. And I think on many levels, they assume they're going to get this bump from Epic Universe and things will just, we're going to ride this wave until our new stuff's built. If that scenario doesn't play out for them, it's going to be a rough few years in terms of how they manage this and handle it, and what do they look like coming out of it. So again, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying you're looking at it as that's something that could happen. But obviously, we'll have to wait and see on that. But either way, that is going to be it though for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about this article, and do you think that they're right that Disney has pushed the envelope too far, which is causing a long-term problem for them? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.